Hello, and welcome to Michigan Theater and Film Talk. I am your host, Jeff Tamakis, and a few business things before we get started. You can subscribe on YouTube by searching at Michigan Checkoff on YouTube, and you can also go on Facebook and look for Michigan Michael Checkoff classes on Facebook and like that page. Either way, you'll be the first to get notified of interviews like these. We are also, if you're listening to this on podcast, searchable through Michigan Theater and Film Talk on Apple and on Android. So feel free to subscribe there as well. And now I'd like to introduce my guest today, which is Ashley M. Lyle.
Hello.
The very talented Ashley M. Lyle. And I'm so glad that you're on today.
I'm glad too. I'm really excited.
I'm very excited about this conversation. I hope that we cover some stuff that needs to be talked about, and
we don't get caught up.
Well, that's my problem. Is that I'm just interested, and I just end up talking, and you end up talking, and I don't care where this goes.
Right.
You know, as long as we go someplace that interests us, and maybe you guys can be involved as well. Maybe you'll find this interesting. I don't know.
Hopefully.
But yeah, well, hopefully you're not. This is the worst thing I've ever heard. But if we still have you, Ashley M. Lyle is a local actress.
Yes.
And you are the owner of BLAQN, BLAQN.
Yes.
And tell me about what BLAQN does.
So BLAQN stands for Black Literature and Art Queens Network, and it aims to honor and acknowledge Black women as stage performers and promotes diversity, inclusion, and equity.
So any kind of stage performers, like?
Yeah, anyone. So it's not just actors, but also comedians, poets, dancers, burlesque performers.
Burlesque performers.
Drag performers. It's you'd be surprised, and I was truly surprised about how huge the burlesque community is in Michigan. It's huge.
Yeah, I think I knew that. Because I've met a few burlesque performers, and there's an incredible amount of very talented, extremely athletic women in this community who do things that are like, I can't believe that, because it's a physical, it's such a physical enterprise.
And I've come across, because I stalk people on Instagram, but
Who doesn't?
But I've come across several burlesque performers that are males as well, as long as non-binary burlesque performers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Like I've come across 3 very talented burlesque performers. One named Caffeine Love. They are a burlesque performer and a drag king. And from the videos that I've seen, they are very talented.
Oh, really?
Very talented. They put on a really great show. Another person, Eartha Kitten.
Eartha Kitten.
It is such a clever stage name.
Yes,
I love it. I
yes.
absolutely love it. And she has been doing it for about a year and a half maybe. But her show, based on the videos that I've seen, she really knows how to put on a show, and she's been doing like several gigs around Michigan and going across state lines and stuff. So she's been really putting herself out there. And I'm not sure if she does burlesque, but I know she does drag. Her name is Dottie Monroe. And her costumes are just extravagant and beautiful, and I just love everything about her costumes. It's just really great. I've met some very talented people in this whole search of BLAQN and trying to uplift Black women performers when nobody else is really realizing them or acknowledging them.
So this is interesting because somewhere along the line you recognized the problem and you decided to be part of the solution. So tell me about this experience, if you can, of the experience you had of going through your life and realizing they needed you.
So I have always been just about the only black person in the room, or one of two. So it's always been that way with me. Growing up as a kid, I went to a private Catholic school, being the only black kid in every single class that I've ever been in, and the only time that I ever recall another black kid at my school was when I was getting ready to leave that school, and this kid was just coming in.
So what did you tag?
Right, it was pretty much tag,
in.
you know, like you're the token black kid now, so there you go. But I will say that, you know, I've experienced my own fair share of hardships going to a private white Catholic school and going to a majority black charter school. And I would say that it has definitely molded me into the person that I am right now, where I'm hyper aware about it. And if it wasn't for my mother making sure to instill in me my black culture, then I feel like I probably would have gotten lost in the bundle, per se.
Do you think you would have lost a large part of your identity had your mother not instilled that
Absolutely.
in you? And what does that mean to you? I mean, what?
It means a lot.
Yeah.
It really, really means a lot. For me, for my entire family, well, speaking me specifically, I remember a time when I was going to my elementary school where we had Heritage Day. And I knew that I was black, but I didn't really know what it really meant to be black in America. And not just being black in America, but being black in America at a predominantly white Catholic school. So all the other kids, you had kids that were coming in with their Polish garb, their French garb, French Canadian, Italian, what have you. Mostly countries from European area or, you know, something like that. So I knew that with the information that I knew about my family, because my family, both sides of my family are from Louisiana. So I knew that.
Really?
Yeah.
What part of Louisiana do you know?
So my father is from Shreveport, and my mother's family is from New Orleans itself.
Oh,
New Orleans and Algiers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I just asked because I just came from Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, what part? Because I know what you're talking. I'm familiar with that state. Oh, now I can talk about me somehow. But we were in Natchitoches, which is like just south of Shreveport. So
okay.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So I knew that my family was Creole, and I knew that Creole meant that there was a French heritage in it, and I was very proud of that. Because I didn't know anyone else that was like me at that time that was Creole. So I knew that it associated with being black and with being French. So I wanted to explore the French side of it, and my mother was like, oh no, absolutely not. You're going to go in there with your dashiki, you're going to go in there with your head wrap, and you were going to go in there saying that your African heritage is what's important to you. And that was that absolute moment that solidified me as to what it meant to be black. It meant for me to represent myself and the heritage that my ancestors came from when nobody else was representing it.
Yes, and I was, as you were saying that, I was thinking, you know, would it have been different if you had gone to an all-black school and they had Heritage Day, and then you would have been able to say, well, here is where my difference lies. But here you are in this predominantly all-white school, and to say, well, I'm also French, that doesn't show.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about it is, and that's, for example, when I went to high school, to a predominantly black high school, I was faced with a different problem. In the white Catholic school, I was faced with the problem of being black, and some that just couldn't accept it. When I went to the predominantly black school, I was faced with the problem of being light-skinned and speaking in a vernacular that was not accustomed to them. So it was two different culture shocks for me.
Yeah.
But I think as a person, especially now as an adult, I was able to navigate through it the way that I needed to be the person that I am today.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can. There's a word, code switching. I can easily code switch between two vernaculars.
Yeah.
So if I'm with, say, a group of white friends of mine, or even in business situations, you know, I know that I can speak with a specific vernacular that I don't know exactly how to put it, but I know that with a certain
maybe it's easier for the listener to understand.
Exactly.
You know, it's almost like being bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
which
then,
is weird in this country. You know.
And then the other side of me, because I was able to adapt and change, I'm able to speak in a way where it's weird to explain it, but it's easier to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I'm around my other black friends, I know there is a vernacular that I can adapt to, where it's what we can speak, and then something that I can speak to other white people, or in other situations where it calls for a certain vernacular of quote unquote proper English, per se. If you get what I'm saying.
I do. I'm wondering, is there a market for black translators out there? You know, it's like maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what would help.
Right. There are so many, like, if you research it on Google, I'm not the best person to actually fully describe it or fully explain it, but there's several articles that you can Google online regarding the topic of code switching. And it's not just black people that do it. White people do it all the time too. So it's just something, your vernacular changes based on the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
And you adapt, you change. It's all about being human.
Yeah. And so you had this experience growing up of sort of, you know, and this is what I'm getting. Is like you were an outsider wherever you were. Yeah. Which is typical of a lot of theater people. I mean, we do. We feel like for some reason, we're always like the theater kids are usually on the outside. Theater kids rarely get elected prom queen or king.
Well, you know what's really strange? I really didn't start getting into theater until I was an adult. I always liked to perform. I wanted to be a singer when I was a kid. Actually, first I wanted to be a doctor. Then I realized that I had to deal with blood, and I didn't want to deal with that. So
yeah, that's the turnoff for me.
So it wasn't until a performance that I did. I want to say it was in kindergarten. We did this big show for our parents, and the song that we had to sing together was "You've Got a Friend" by Carole King. And that song just has always stuck with me, and it was just always been such a lovely memory of mine, and something that made me remember that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and that's perform. So, like I said, I did like school shows, like in elementary school we had different Christmas shows.
But did they have theater programs proper at the schools that you went to?
At the elementary school, yes. But at my high school, I went to two different high schools. Excuse me. The second one that I went to had a small theater program. Nothing major. I mean, we would put on shows at the end of the year, but it was nothing huge. But I would say what I would consider huge was what I used to do in elementary school. There was a play called, I want to say that it's called the Crayon play, but I know that's probably not the right word for it. But all the kids would dress up in specific colors, like at least two for each color. And I played the blue crayon along with someone else. And then there was this one kid, he dressed up as the red crayon, so he was the cool one. So, and all
well, yes, everyone knows the cool crayon is the red crayon.
Exactly.
I mean, it's certainly not that white crayon, that useless crayon. I feel like that's the useless, like nobody invites to any parties.
Right, and that's funny because the white crayon, if I remember correctly, would just be by themselves. The white and the gray crayons would be by themselves.
I'm only useful in dark backgrounds.
But the blue crayons, me and another kid, we were always sad because we were blue. And we had our own little song and everything, my best friend uses that to blackmail me when she wants to. So
well, now it's out. It's out.
It's
there.
out now, so
you can't blackmail.
exactly.
Your payments are over.
Right. But that was definitely another moment that fills my heart with joy, because I remember the feeling I got from it, and it just fills my heart. Another moment, and I know you want to get back to what we were talking about.
No. All right. Like I said, I mean, wherever it goes, it goes.
Right.
You know, I'm just in for the ride. I'm buckling up. You're the driver. You take me where we want to go.
Right. So there was another play that we did, Shoemaker and the Elves. It was my 8th grade year. And that was the first time where we had a solid theater program. Because at first it was our music teacher that was doing these theater programs with us. But I guess it got too much for her at the time, or they wanted to explore having an actual theater
incredibly
teacher.
time.
Yeah. Because
consuming.
she had her own lesson plan, and then also she was teaching piano after school.
Yeah, they were working her to death.
Yeah. And that woman, her name is Barbara Koberstad. I love that woman so much. To this day, that woman made such a pivotal moment in my life where I will never forget it.
Yeah.
Ever. But we did have a theater teacher in my 8th grade year, which I was very upset, because it's like, why are you guys doing this now? And I'm getting ready to leave. So, but we did the show, Shoemaker and the Elves, and I played the mean landlord that was coming in telling the shoemaker, you have so many hours to pay me or else you're kicked out. And then, of course, that's when the elves started helping the shoemaker and so on and so forth. So when it was my character, when she tried on the shoes, when she just went into this complete craziness of just ecstasy, because the shoes just felt so good. So I was required by, according to the teacher, I need you to just go berserk, absolutely crazy, and run around the gym. I'm like, are you serious? But she was like, you are an actor.
That sounds like a theater teacher. Yeah, that sounds.
You are to be this character. I want you to be excited. Exactly. So I remember my mother and her friend, they came to see me in the show, and I put the shoes on, and I went completely rampant. Just screaming around the entire gym, ran laps around the entire gym. The other students had to chase me, and I'm having a fit, and I run back behind the stage. They never caught me, because I just loved the shoes too much. So they all came back on stage, and I remember my mother telling me, after all the kids got back up on stage, her friend said to her, Ashley's crazy, right? Mind you, I'm an 8th grader, and a grown adult is saying how crazy I am.
Well, speaking as the father of an 8th grader, y'all are crazy. All 8th graders are crazy. So she wasn't lying. I don't know, though she could have said that about anyone in the room that was an 8th grader, or even a 7th grader, really, quite frankly, and she would have been correct.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's another beautiful moment. But for me, I really started diving into theater and studying it when I was about 21. And that's when I found John C. Foreman, my mentor.
John C. Foreman. We love you, John C. Foreman.
I love that man so much. He opened my eyes so big to the world of acting in general. Not just theater, but just acting in general. And he's just a phenomenal actor, a phenomenal teacher, and a phenomenal human being altogether.
Yep.
I would not be doing what I'm doing right now in theater and in acting if it was not for that man.
That's wonderful.
Period.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I studied with him for about 6 years. And until he kicked me out, he said, go be in a show. Now, you cannot keep taking classes with me. I was like, okay. So, the first show that I did was at Barefoot Theater out in Plymouth.
Okay.
And that show was called Motherhood Out Loud. And that was like a real test of what I can do with this character. Because I read it so plainly, and I kept thinking about it like, okay, what is something that I need to do? Because even when we were running through it, I felt that I wasn't connected with it. I'm like, okay, I need to do something And then I completely 180 what I was going to do. And the director, when she saw me do my
Mm-hmm.
transformation of this character, she was like, that was amazing. Whatever you did, keep doing that. Keep doing that. So
Found it. Oh yeah, I love it when you find it in rehearsals, right?
So I was just like, okay, all right, I think I got this. I think I got this. So from there, I continued doing community theater, and then I transitioned into professional theater. And my first professional show was 2 years ago, actually,
Okay.
and it was at the Matrix Theater,
Mhm.
and the show was called Who Will Sing for Lena.
Okay.
That show is an absolute beast, period. Because
Okay.
not only was it my first professional show, but it was a one-woman show.
So when you say you transitioned into professional theater, I mean I transitioned from community theater to doing a one-person show at the Matrix.
I wasn't expecting the absolute gravity that this show held. All I knew was that I needed a better creative outlet than what community theater was giving. And not only that, but I wanted to get paid for my art.
Getting paid is helpful. I mean, for me, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters how much I'm getting paid. I'm not gonna lie. But if I'm getting paid, even a small stipend, if I'm paying my actors even a small stipend, that it says something about what we're doing that's different, right? I mean, I feel like it says we value you enough to want to put a number sign by your work, you know? And I mean, it's sort of like when you have a painting,
Right.
and you're like, well, I mean, they rarely ask painters to just give away their paintings,
Right.
but actors were asked all the time to just give away your art, just give it away. What people are actually like surprised and even offended.
Yeah.
What? You're not going to give it to me for free?
Right.
And I mean, nothing against community theater. I think community theater is really, really, really valuable.
I'm very thankful to community theater. Very thankful for it because it helped me to catapult myself into what I'm doing right now. Because I never would have had the amount of confidence that I have right now, and I still think I have low confidence, but I would not have even...
Every actor has low confidence
Right.
inside. I mean, except for the buttholes. I mean, there's every actor is like has that deep. Okay, I'm gonna have because this is a conversation, right? You know, I remember I was in the show, and it was like my first really big professional show, and I was surrounded by these great actors, and I was Of Mice and Men, and
okay.
I was playing Lenny, and I was surrounded by these great actors, and I mean, just like a who's who of Michigan theater at the time, and I turned to Dennis, who was playing George, and
Kleinsmith?
no, Dennis
okay.
North. Dennis North.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, you know, I just feel like so inadequate. I feel like there's a demon. Like someone's going to just stand up and just say, "Stop! You're a fraud." and he turns to me, and he's a great actor, been doing it for years. He goes, "You too?" And I'm like, that's when everything made sense for me. I'm like, well, we all have the demon. We all have that demon inside, unless you're a butthole. Can I say butthole? I'm going to say butthole.
If it wasn't for community theater, then I would not have had the confidence that I have now to do professional theater. If I went straight, and I've auditioned for several like independent stuff, and
Independent theater stuff? Okay.
and got burned from it. But
Like non-equity independent theaters?
non-equity, like no real establishments or anything like that. Where
We're going to put on a show, Alfalfa?
exactly. And we promise you so much money that you're gonna get, and then at the end of the show, the check bounces. That kind of stuff. So
Don't do that.
you don't do that. But community theater definitely helped me to build the confidence that I have right now to be able to do professional theater and know that I can get work from somewhere. You know.
Do you find that there's opportunities here for you? Enough?
Well,
Because I feel like we're going to be transitioning back to BLAQN here in a minute.
right, exactly. I feel that now there is a theater called Black and Brown Theater. I haven't gotten the chance to really work with them one-on-one, but they put on really great work on their own. And that was the reason for it being built, because Black and brown actors are not getting the opportunities that white actors are getting. And whenever these theaters are putting on shows, they're creating predominantly white casts. And that's the whole point that's one of the major points of Black and brown theater. I'm not a representative of it, so I can't really speak on it, but I do know that their main goal is to create their own work.
I know
they have Black and brown artists.
And I've worked a little bit with Black and Brown Theater in trying to find talent, and they have a great database for people of color all over the community when you're looking for a person of color.
Just make sure that you're completely descriptive on who you're looking for, because if you just say, I'm looking for a black man, that's not how you do it.
That's not well, but I've been a director, and there are shows that I would love to direct. And, like Othello or, particularly Shakespeare shows, Troilus and Cressida, with specific people of color in mind, even Antony and Cleopatra. And you put the audition notice, and it's or even on a season call. And so what I found is it's really hard to get people of color to come in for a season call. And I'm wondering, is it because they already have written me off or my theater off in the first place? Or is it because they just don't want to do season calls? Or I mean, what do you tell a director like me, who's out there looking for? I mean, we had a show in which we were looking specifically for up to 4 black actors, and we had a hard time even getting people to come in and audition for us. And I'm wondering what's going on. Where's the disconnect? Because I'm like you. I want to see more people of color represented all throughout the board. I see the whiteness. And I even theaters that are like, I went to this one show, and they were celebrating this show. They had 2 great people of color in the lead, and then they were like, here's the playwright, and here's this white playwright going hello everybody, and I'm like, well, that was interesting.
Right. My answer to that would be is, how are you putting up your season call information? Because if you're just saying we're putting on this is our season, come audition. If you're just putting that, it's not really opening up that door for marginalized people. And I'm not just talking about just people of color, but also people with different abilities, different gender identities, different orientations, everything. Okay. So what I would say is that you have to make sure that when you're putting up audition notices, you have to make sure that you're putting that disclaimer in saying we are looking for all representations of every human or every person. That means we are open to race, sexual orientation, gender identity, abilities, such and such, blah, blah, blah. Just list it all. So that way you can let people know that, hey,
we're calling for you.
We're calling for you.
Come, please.
Please come and audition.
An audition, yeah.
Now, in my own personal answer for that is that I have not studied Shakespeare. Shame on me as an actor. That would be the reason why I wouldn't audition, even though that's something I know I should definitely study. Shame on me.
Well, what's funny about it is that doesn't seem to stop a lot of white folks from auditioning for me. You know? That doesn't stop them from coming in. I've never done Shakespeare, but I thought it would be fun. Or I've never done Shakespeare, and I thought I would challenge myself. Not saying that, of course, that people of color don't want to have fun or challenge themselves, but I'm saying there's a sort of feeling like, well, you know, I see so many new white actors in Shakespeare auditions. You know, like I'm doing my first Shakespeare show because I thought it, you know, because it's fun or whatever, and so many people of color, you know, and I'm not saying that there aren't like a ton of white people who are like, I will not audition for Shakespeare. It is pretentious, and I just wouldn't touch it.
Talking just like that?
Yeah, talking like this. This is my imaginary white person who won't audition for me. How dare you? I really do man it. But you know, the fact is that, you know, a good Shakespeare director, a good director of any kind, I mean, it's just poetry. It's all it is poetry. And you're just saying poetry. I mean, yeah, some of the words are a little different. There's some these and thous and thus. But for the most part, it's easy to do Shakespeare. Shakespeare was designed to be memorized easily.
And that's what I heard. I heard that Shakespeare wrote for the common man. He didn't write for such a, you know, for anyone of hierarchy or anything. But I'm just thinking in my 20th century mind, with the way that the words are written on this page, I cannot understand what you're saying. That's my gripe.
Well, you know, I think any actor, even when I was studying at the Hillbury, we would sit there and go, you know, with the no fear Shakespeare, and go, what is he really saying here? I don't know what they're. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, but you know, Shakespeare aside, you know, Shakespeare is one thing, but my experience, you know, and my experience as a director in town was just that, was just Shakespeare. But in talking with a lot of other people, like I would love to do more plays with a very diverse cast, but a lot of times I'm not getting people from Detroit to come up and audition for me.
And I believe the reason for that is, you know, actors of color will look at the history of that theater. If they look at the history of that theater and they see previous shows where it's white,
So they're
one black person, white, then they're not going to feel welcomed. Or if, say for example, if they're a director, and I'm not saying this happens a lot or all the time, but I know that there needs to be more representation with theater staffs, like as directors, producers, stage managers. There is a serious lack in that as well. Like, for example, Detroit Public Theater, when they did Paradise Blue, their director was black. And when you're doing a show by Dominique, and I know I'm going to mess up her last name, Dominique Morrisau, it's important to have a black director for that show. Are you familiar with Paradise Blue?
No. And then just in case anybody's listening, could you?
So, Paradise Blue takes place in Detroit, Black Bottom, in, I believe, in the late 1950s, or not. I'm sorry, not late, early 1950s or late 40s. And the businesses in Detroit Black Bottom are going out of business because gentrification is happening. So this club owner, who goes by the name Blue, he has this old nightclub that he inherited from his father, who he had a troubled past, and he's trying to keep it afloat, but then he was offered a really nice sum of money to sell it. Well, now the people that work with him, including his girlfriend, whom he has a terrible relationship with anyway, they don't know that he's trying to sell his bar. And a mysterious character comes in and kind of like flips everything on its side to where he has to actually, one, face his demons, and two, face his fellow co-workers with the notion that he's going to sell his building. Okay. And without revealing too much.
Yeah, no spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. But it's such a good play. It's so good. Mm-hmm. Period. Dominique Morissette, her work is absolutely tremendous. She is a Detroit writer. Mm-hmm. Her show just went up for Ain't Too Proud to Beg on Broadway, and
she lives here in Detroit.
No, she doesn't live here.
Oh,
I'm
but
sure
she's
she
from
lives.
Detroit.
Yeah, she's from Detroit. I believe she went to Cass Tech. Mm-hmm. And her work is just masterful. She has like a whole series. She has Paradise Blue, Detroit 67, and then
this was
another
at
play.
Detroit Public.
Yes.
And how many plays has Dominique Morissette written? Would you say? If you say, is she a new playwright or is she written?
I would say she's fairly new.
Well,
I mean, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do know that she has almost a trilogy series, something like August Wilson. A lot of August Wilson's work, the way that they came out was periodically down the timeline.
Do you think there are a lot of black playwrights who could be being produced by professional theaters that are being overlooked?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. The problem is that you got to get black folks to come in.
Yeah.
You know?
So what do you suggest? How does a theater go about that has this history, right? Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, any theater has a history, mm-hmm. you know, and they, let's say they want to engage with people of color and more and more, and people with disabilities and more diversity. How do you suggest those theaters go about getting started that already have their history of whiteness, for lack of a better word?
I would definitely say find your black directors. Definitely. Mm-hmm. And then the shows that you put on that are normally held for predominantly white casts, start adding more people of color into that mix. You know, and then not just to say to cast them in like ensemble roles, you know, like just throw them in the bag and say, oh, we got our diversity point, yay for us, mm-hmm. and then you collect your grant or whatever the case may be. But, you know, like say for example, Next to Normal. If you have the show Next to Normal, and I would say, and I use that example because Wayne State did a really good example of it. I wish that they had more people of color in that show, but there was a young black artist. He played the role of Gabriel. Mm-hmm. And it was, for me, it was a complete shock because I was not expecting that. Normally, whenever I see Next to Normal, which is a great show, I normally see a white family, mm-hmm. you know? So when he popped up and started singing Gabriel's songs, I was like, okay, I can get with this. Okay. You know, and there was a theater, I believe in Washington State, where this actress played Elle Woods for Legally Blonde.
Oh yeah.
And their cast was completely diverse, mm-hmm. completely diverse, and it was a beautiful cast. I only saw like a few clips here and there from Instagram, but it looked like a really, really great show. So if you take shows that hold predominantly white casts and then you just mix it completely up, unless the show itself dictates specifically this character has to be white or this character has to be black or this one specifically mm-hmm. Asian. If there's no specificity, then mix it up. There's no harm in that. Yeah. Now the other thing is that if you can't find the actors of color, or you just put up your auditions for like say 2 days or something, and you don't get any people of color, then I would highly, highly suggest that the director and the artistic director, and if the theater has one, a casting director, go out and find those actors.
Or else don't do the show. You know,
exactly.
I've been, in college, we had a black director mm-hmm. direct an all white Ain't Misbehavin'. Yeah. And you're like, well, why did you do that? And he was like, well, I didn't have the black actors come up. And we had a black theater
No
but they were,
excuses.
yeah, I'm like,
No excuses.
I was like, this, no. And I've seen that. I've seen that a few times. I've seen a Once on This Island.
Oh,
You know,
my heart.
which
Oh,
doesn't
my
make
heart.
and the casting made no sense. I was like, but I thought this was about light skinned blacks versus dark skinned blacks, and there you have like clearly a white dude in the dark skinned blacks, and I'm like, what?
Now I'm very glad that you know that, because a lot of white actors don't know that Once on This Island, while it is the Caribbean retelling of the Little Mermaid, the original Little Mermaid, not the Disney-fied one.
Yeah.
But the original Little Mermaid, they added that level of classism and colorism. I'm glad that you know that, because a lot of white actors don't know that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
they know about the classism part, but not the colorism part.
Yeah, and I was just perplexed by the whole thing. I was like, the story is not being told. As a director, you got to make sure that the story is being told.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying this video, now would be a great time for you to hit the subscribe button.
Press that button.
And like it and share it with everyone you know, have known, or ever will know in your entire life. And we're going to continue with the interview.
I'm subscribed.
Excellent. I could use you. Thank you. We're still early.
Right.
I do want to talk to you about what do you think is the difference between colorblind casting and color conscious casting?
That's a great question. So with colorblind casting, what that would mean is that while the intention may be there, the impact is not being acknowledged. So your intention may be to hire any person of color to be that role, but then also at the same time, if you're saying you're colorblind casting it, it means that you're not acknowledging that this person is of a different color. I mean, we know that we all have different shades, we all have different cultures, we all have different heritages. To colorblind cast something would mean that you're not trying to acknowledge that person's culture or that person's skin color or their heritage. And if that's not your intention, then rephrase yourself and say that you're a color conscious casting. Because color conscious means that you're completely aware of this person's race, heritage, and culture, and you want them to be all of that for that character.
You know,
if it calls specifically for that character.
I've had conversations with people who said there's no such thing as colorblind casting. Like, you can't, as soon as you cast a person of color in that role, you've made a conscious choice to I mean, because they can't hide behind anything else, right? I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
I would say definitely, as a model for color conscious casting, look at Disney. Disney is doing it.
Yeah.
They are really doing it for their characters on Broadway. For their show Frozen, what is his name? The character that falls in love with Anna. They had this actor.
I don't know. I'm behind on my. I haven't watched Frozen in 2 years. I hit the song maximum amount you can listen to the song, which for me was like 1,500 somewhere around there, and I was like, and I'm done. Like everyone else was like, and we're done with that song. It was everywhere, and then we were all like, as a group, I think we had a meeting. We dreamed a meeting together. We're like, we are now done with that song, and then we moved on with our lives. And there was rejoicing. But no, I don't remember the name of the character. Well, we'll figure it out.
I want to say it's Hans, but I don't think that's the right name. But the actor that played that character originally on Broadway, his name is Jelani Aladdin, and he's a phenomenal actor, terrific voice. And he just embodied the entire character. He was absolutely great. And he was there for his full contract. He was probably there longer. And then they switched him out. I can't remember who the actor is that's playing that character now. But for the understudy for Anna, They have a young black actress. I can't remember her name. I only know her Instagram name. Gifted to Sing, I think her.
All right. Well, Gifted to Sing.
Right,
Look it up
the
on
number
Instagram and then get back to us.
And her voice is, it's just stupendous. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And she just embodies Anna to her absolute core. She is Anna. She is Anna. And it's just really great seeing that. Another example is their show Aladdin. And with Aladdin, they actually had the character Aladdin, when the original actor left to go on the tour for Aladdin, they had an Asian American young man. I think his last name is Tully, Teully, and he was completely doing it big. He did a really fantastic job. But I actually got the chance to see him when the last time I went to New York, because I actually saw Aladdin twice in New York. So, but
all right. Well, here's your award.
Right. Thank you.
The 2-time Watching Aladdin Award.
But he was really great, and he was infectiously cute for the role, and it was just phenomenal. So Disney really knows how to make their color conscious casting for their shows.
That was a voyage for them, though, right? Yeah. I mean, because they really got a lot of slack. It started to build up in the 80s through the 90s, and then it's sort of, somewhere around the middle of the aughts is when they're like, oh, yeah, there are non-white princesses.
Right.
Oh, yeah. They became suddenly, but they've been working on that for the last maybe 10, 15 years.
Yep.
On trying to diversify, which is, you're right, it's a good model for any, even on a much smaller scale. I don't think it would take 10 or 15 years.
Exactly. And like the show that I'm in right now, Christmas at Pemberton at Open Book Theater, we have our last 2 weekends, this weekend and next. Plug. But our cast is color conscious casting.
Okay.
So I'm playing the quote unquote villainess in the show, and where she's trying to reclaim her home that is unexpectedly being taken by her cousin because he's the next male heir. So he takes the property, she takes the money. And her cousin is the main character. His name is Arthur DeBerg, played by Dan Johnson. And it was very interesting the way that our director, Sarah Hawkins...
Sarah Hawkins, yeah, she just got married.
I'm trying to remember her new last name now.
I remember her old last name,
right?
But she's a Michael Chekhov person.
Yes.
So.
The way that she cast the show, I was very pleased, very pleased. And she was actually one of the people that attended one of my events for BLAQN, the town hall meeting for theater, where we talked about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And Sarah is such a fantastic human being. She really, really is. And I appreciate that she is hyper aware of casting consciously, and not only that, but with Dan Johnson, he himself is just an absolute genius, and he was made for that role to play Arthur. So, and I'm just so happy that I got the chance to play this role of Anne, because Anne, while she's just this pompous little piece of whatever, she's actually very vulnerable. And she has this side to her where she doesn't want to get screwed over, and she's doing whatever it takes to make sure that she doesn't get screwed over. And even if that means belittling people or pushing people to the side, But she has this moment towards the end of the show where she just wants to be loved. And it's really such a touching moment where I really feel for her, because I know exactly what she is going through. When you are being threatened, and then you got to do whatever it takes, and then you come to realize that you got people that want what's best for you, and they look out for you. So I appreciate Anne so much, and I'm just so glad that I got the chance to actually to get to play this character.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a little bit in love with her,
I am.
Which is exactly where you should be.
Yeah.
You know?
She's such a dynamic character. Like sometimes when you get these kind of cartoony villainy type characters, you think they're just one note.
Oh, I hope not.
No, but when you have really great writing, and that also helps too. Lauren Gunderson is an absolute genius. Period. When you have really great writing, the character is written all in the dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, your job as an actor really is to find, and this is my teaching hat being put on here, is even if you're given a relatively two-dimensional character, your job as an actor is to find that third dimension.
Yeah.
And usually it involves love. Usually involves a need. Every scene is a love scene, is what I always say, and you have to find the love, even in those dark, so-called evil, quote-unquote, characters.
Right.
Even Richard III, I'm bringing up Shakespeare again, because that's what I do.
That's what he does.
But even Richard III, his motivations are related to love. It could be just love of himself.
Yeah.
But
it's some type of love.
Yeah, but it is love somewhere in there. And so I'm happy that you get to play such a great character.
I would say the other great character that I played was in my show Who Will Sing for Lena. No, not to be confused with Lena Horne. It has nothing to do with Lena Horne.
Okay.
So the story is about Lena May Baker, and she was the first and only person in Georgia to be sentenced to death by electrocution. And she was sentenced to death because she killed her rapist.
Okay.
Yeah. So
how dare she?
Right. And it was 1940s Georgia. In Cuthbert, Georgia. She was a black woman, and her rapist was a white man.
She didn't stand a chance.
Didn't stand a chance. So, and I'm so grateful to my director, Cassandra Freeman. She warned me. She pre-warned me. She was like, "I'm gonna be hard on you, just to let you know." So, and hard on me she was, and I'm forever grateful for how tough she was on me, because that I was able to do the character. I feel like I can explore it more, because I'm dying to actually do that show again. But she pushed me to where I needed to be, and then also adding the elements that she added into the story really helped me to catapult the story to where it needed to be. Yeah. The way that she had me do it was I had to. It's three main things. One, I had to have 15 distinctive voices throughout the entire show. I had to reenact the rape. Yeah. And I had to sit in the electric chair and be electrocuted.
Okay.
Exactly. That's everybody's reaction.
That sounds so fun. That sounds so fun. I mean, people who aren't actors, they'll hear me say something like that, and they'll be like, "How could you?" And I'm like, that for an actor, that is awesome that you got to do that, because there's so much joy in the art, if not, the act, of course, is horrible, but in telling the story, there is a joy in telling that story, and maybe joy is the wrong word, a satisfaction, artistic satisfaction in finding that story, and that's great. Wow.
Yeah, and I had to do that for 5 weekends.
Yeah.
So that was.
So did that have an effect on you? I played a character years ago in a show called Rabbit Hole, and he lost his son, right, and his 6-year-old son, and my daughter was about 2 years old at the time, and I remember just like being shaky on the way home sometimes, because we went to such depths of emotion, such hard times. Did something similar happen to you, or did you?
Yeah, Cassandra actually told me, she said, you're gonna need something to bring you back down to earth after every show.
Got to cross that threshold.
Period. You need something that is going to not just satisfy you, but calm you after doing a heavy show like this. Because it was pretty much every night where I had people in tears every single night.
I would hope so.
Yeah. So, so I'm like, check, did my job. But it was definitely an emotionally and physically taxing show. It was a lot. And then not only that, but at the time I had a full-time job. So I was doing that show, plus going to rehearsal, and then getting right back up the next day for another 8-hour shift.
Why is Ashley in such a bad mood?
What's
What's going on with Ashley?
going on? And it was definitely draining. Everything about it was draining. So the only thing that was kicking me out of that funk or that place of negativity was the SpongeBob the musical soundtrack.
That is a fun soundtrack.
Right.
All right, good. All right.
Along with other musical soundtracks, but musicals, happy-go-lucky musicals, were definitely my escape from that show. Mm-hmm. It helped me to really get me out of that space of a depressive moment and everything, and that's why I really love the SpongeBob musical.
But do you listen? Did it have the opposite effect? Do you listen to SpongeBob musical and think of that show and I go, oh?
Right? No. It doesn't have the opposite effect.
Good.
No, if anything, I still listen to it now to this
good.
day. So
good, because you don't want to ruin it for yourself
Right.
either. Like, oh no, now I'm associating
Right.
this fun musical with pain. What am I gonna do?
no, it really helped me to kind of it was that proverbial mother that kind of like cradled me and soothed me, to kind of be like everything is okay, and like and especially with the cute messages that's in the SpongeBob musical. When you listen to it, it's like everything is okay. Today is a great day, and that was definitely what. Especially the one song, It's the Best Day Ever. Mm-hmm. Even after doing that show, like I would immediately press play, and that would be the first song I would go to. It's the best day. So,
yeah. Music has such power. It can pull us out of those moments, and it can put us into those moments. I mean,
Yes.
There's certain shows I had a dressing room soundtrack to, to get myself into that mindset as well.
And so. I like right now, especially because I'm still finding out what works best for me. I find that like on YouTube they have these videos of like a white noise of like rain and some very soothing music that helps that helps me to stay calm, and because I get very bad anxiety when it comes to the stage, so I have to make sure that I put myself in a calming mood, do my warm up, and then as I'm doing my makeup, continue to play the music and keep me in a better headspace. So, and I know of an actor where their method is to pick songs that they would think match their character, and they play that the entire time while they're listening to the show. So I'm just like, that's a whole nother method that is amazing. That I don't even know if that would work for me. So I might try that.
Well, everybody has a different process, right? For me, what I teach is that music has its own atmosphere, and that atmosphere has the power to influence the actor and inspire the actor. And it's not just with music, but with a variety of different ways to accomplish atmosphere. But for me, when I'm teaching in my classes, it's like atmosphere is everything. How you establish, when you're walking into a room, how that moves you and inspires you is really important, and you have to have a clear image of that as an actor. We've got maybe a little bit more time, but we're almost wrapping up. Do you want to talk about what BLAQN is up to and what BLAQN hopes to accomplish over because this is your 1 year? You've been around for a year, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what's 2020 look like for BLAQN?
So we're still formulating everything. We're getting some projects together. There's actually, I would actually like to put on a theatrical production at some point. And I'm working on another project. And I hope that, because my main goal is to have something happening at least each month.
Yeah.
At least each month. Because
Okay.
that was my problem earlier in the year, where I'm still figuring everything out. I'm trying to create something of value for the organization, and I'm looking for more people to actually help with my organization. Because right now I have 4 great women that have been through with me through thick and darn thin, and that's Sade Davis, Dinah, Tutine.
Tutine, Dinah Tutine,
Yep,
yeah.
she was your second show.
She was my second. Hi,
Yep.
Dinah.
And another actress / director named Amber Price. And these 4 women have just been like through everything. I had other women as well, such as Sarah. Gosh darn it, I am terrible with names. Sarah, she helped me. She was helping me out. She's primarily at Planet Ant.
Okay.
Brittany, she's a theater lover. She used to do theater when she was when she was younger, but right now she's more into exploring theater and slowly getting back into it. And another, gosh, I'm terrible with names. I am absolutely.
Oh,
terrible.
you know what? You're not being quizzed. So
But I know that if they watch this, they know
if
that
you're out there, you're there. It can be nerve-wracking being on a podcast. So
Yes.
sometimes the names just elude
Yes.
you, and you're like, ah. But
I wish I could. I have their faces
Yeah.
in my mind. I wish I could just project it onto the camera
Well,
so you know who you are.
Here's what we'll do. If you are interested in learning more about BLAQN, the website is www.blaqn.org.
Yes.
Or you can find them on Facebook, right?
And Instagram.
Facebook and Instagram. So if you want to know more about BLAQN and what Ashley and Lyle is up to, please go to those websites right after this. Right after you hit subscribe to this, then put it in your URL code and go off to that. But it has been a great conversation.
I enjoyed this.
Yeah, and I'd love to have you on again if you ever want to come back. And
just call me. Let me know.
absolutely. And thank you. Yeah, it's been illuminating for me. You know, so I guess here's the takeaway: is that A, that you're great, and B, that if you are a theater in this community that really wants to start diversifying, say it.
Yeah.
Say it.
Absolutely.
You know, say it in your casting calls. Say it.
And I will just add like one other thing. When these theaters are putting together shows, you cannot, and I've dealt with this myself. That's why it's such a pin for me. You cannot expect your actors of color to bring in more actors of color. You just can't. You cannot expect that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like it's like you're depending on them to diversify your theater or
that's
show.
not their job.
No.
Their job
this
is
is
to
your show.
It's
as
hard
a
enough
director.
just to show up, especially in Michigan in the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, definitely you as the director, or casting director, or artistic director, whatever. That's your job to find the people of color, to diversify your cast, or people of different abilities, orientations, what have you.
Yeah.
That's your job. Period.
that's a great way to leave it. I've been Jeff Tamakis. You can find me online at www.michigancheckoff.com or jefftamakis.com, or you can find me on Facebook by going on Michigan Michael Checkoff classes or all those other places I said before. We'll be back next week. Fingers crossed. I still have to find another guest. But that's the way things roll.
I don't think you'll have a problem with that.
But we'll see you guys later.